Very warm welcome back, everyone, to today's session. Today's session is one of those sessions which is going to be very critical when you guys go in real world and perform actual React application buildings for various use cases and organizations. So, without too much delay, let's go back to the learning material we have. One of the first topics today we have is uh, performance. And specifically, performance is a multifaceted topic, but in terms of React, uh, what I would suggest is for React, the performance can be broken to a generic performance as well as React specific performance. Today, we will cover the React specific performance. If you look at the diagram that is provided on the learning resource, this is a DOM tree. A DOM tree is nothing but document object model. So what do I mean by that? Let's actually start a React project that I have created for today, and then React performance demo. Yes, this one. So you guys very well know how to create a new project uh, and then run it. It's built with a white uh, and using white we are then we did the npm install and then npm run dev. So DOM tree is nothing but how your various nodes are rendered inside the browser's window. The whole tree that you see here, whole browser window that you see here is DOM, document object model. And if you look at our CTD class, this is the DOM tree. It starts from body, and then we see different elements that are nested within this body in a tree structure. So if I go back to this diagram, the div that you see here, you could visualize this as the component A, and the style, you could tell it as component B, and this main tag, you could think of it as a component C. Uh, so let's see if the project is up now. Yeah, we have local. So if we had to simply visualize this, if we had just like limited amount of components, once this loads, we'll be able to see is this is our DOM tree, the body, and within DOM tree we have the React component. Uh, this React component update text, and within this update text we have another component which is displaying the count. So let's go back to our code. So this is our main parent component. This is component A if you had to go back to the diagram. And this is component B. Now the problem with the React is in a standard way when we code the React, because component B depends upon the component A, because it's a child of component A, whenever there is an update to the component A, the code for component B also gets executed. What do I mean by that? So let's see what our component has. It has a parent component is uh, component update text button and current parent text. So this is the part that is coming from first two lines are coming from the component a component uh, that is parent component. And the child component, which is a counter, is actually let me put a horizontal line so there's a clear demarcation between both these components for you guys to understand. So not the correct, not here. So everything above this the horizontal line is parent component and everything below is child component. Because child component is tightly attached to parent component, anything we do which updates the state value in the parent component runs the code inside the child component also. Even though there is a no visual change to child component, and this is very inefficient. We are running the code of child component even though it's not necessary. And how we can verify? So well, to verify that, I have put this few console log statements that counter component code ran. So if I go here into the counter component, uh, there is a console log. Whenever this code will execute, this component code will execute, we will see this console log printed. So if you see, I'm clicking a button on parent component. Now the parent component state was updated. But if we look at here, we saw another console log as well. Even though there is nothing visually changed on our UI screen, um, there is a console statement indicating that the code in the child component ran as well. And imagine this being hundreds and thousands of such components in our React application. Now we will be running all of those that code for no reason, and that will slow down our React application. So to overcome that, one of the ways to overcome it is the topic we have actually learned in the past is memoization. When we looked at the use memo hook, uh, we can use a memoization technique to improve our child component so that it really only updates when something inside the child component updates. So what it means by something inside the child component updating. So whenever I click on the count button, the counter updates, and then we are seeing the counter component code range. That is okay because now actually we need to display a new value in the child component. So to do that, we can simply do so instead of use memo, we'll just use the memo function that React provides. Just wrap our code inside the memo function, the entire code, and component is another function. I think I've seen this in the past, so let me restart. So you might need to restart your server to recompile it properly. But now let's do the same thing. We click something, and now we did not see the child component code run. But if I actually make an update to child component, we will see the code running in the child component. So this is how you should look to optimize the rendering of React components so that um, it it makes it more performant. So the next topic for today is the prop types, and I'm referring back to our learning resources because some of the things are not there in the textbook. So I suggest you guys to actually go in learning resources and look at this. So if you look at our code, right? So this label value, which is inside the child component, is a string type. And actually, the better example I created was uh, a username component, but we'll see it really soon. Now, this label, right? So JavaScript doesn't prevent you from changing the data type of a variable. So let's say if I define mm, a new variable, let's say new var equal to ABC. So now the new var is of type string. So we can check this type of, uh, and you guys will be using this kind of functions when you go uh, in the real world. So if you see, I defined it as a string, and then if I check it, uh, it says a string type. But JavaScript doesn't prevent you from doing something like new equal to 20. So now you can reassign that another type of value to the any defined variable. So there is no strict type checking in JavaScript, and that can lead to a lot of bugs. Thankfully, for at least the properties of a component, which are very key pieces of element, they can be improved using something called PropTypes. It's an external library that supports uh, strict typing of the properties. But to use this, what you would do is you would do npm install in your project because it will not be there in your project. So to use this before you run your code, you have to do npm install PropTypes. Actually, let me show you guys so you guys have this in video. So you have to do something like this. And once the install happens, you have this. Uh,
Daniel,
uh,
pick the lanche.
there, yeah, can you move? Uh, so you can. Sorry, I mistyped. It's a prop test types, not prop types. It's the exported member, not the library name. So once it's installed, you just simply start your project again, and you will be able to import this. And now in the username, I'm telling, hey, the username property of the component username will be of type string. So let's actually see this in action. So let's import uh, username component. Oh, uh, username. And now let's create a new demarcation and then I'll put some helper text. So once you guys run this code on your own, you would have this updated code so that you guys can follow along. So now I have to define username and it has a property username equal to, let's say John Doe. And now we run our code and we see John Doe. Nothing happens. But let me try passing instead of a string. So John Doe is a string. Let me pass a number. So I'm passing number one. And while the React will not prevent from the component to be rendered, uh, you will get a warning. It says failed prop type, invalid prop username of type number. The supplied username expects a string. So it's telling us that this should have been a string, not a number. This is how you can actually make your code more stricter and more streamlined. And actually, the biggest advantage of this is if you're working in a team, you expected this thing to be a prop type of a string, and it turned out to be a prop type number. The other developer will see this warning and they will correct their mistakes. So I'll leave this mistake here. So when you guys pull the code, you guys see this will not let me comment here, but it's okay. So this is the second topic of prop types that we want to cover today, which leads to a even more important topic, which is TypeScript. Prop type is like a tiny fraction of what TypeScript is. You can only do typing on the prop types is a tiny fraction of mm, what TypeScript offers. TypeScript allows you to create all kinds of typing, which makes your code super safe and super viable. And nowadays, most of the React projects that I have looked at are on TypeScript rather than the pure JavaScript. So to understand TypeScript, I have created a new project, and let me look at and I'll provide all of this code. So cd React and I can run that. And so this is the code for our project. Uh, so first and foremost, uh, to create a white project with React and TypeScript, all you need to do is send the same white command to create the new project. And then you provide, instead of template React, you give the template as React-ts. So I like that command when you guys have this code. But now we have our code open. First thing that you will notice is our files, the component files are known as TSX, not JSX. So this is the JavaScript code that we saw. This has app.jsx. This has app.tsx. And now the same user profile component where we were doing the typing, let's go and look at it. Now I am able to define a proper interface, which is not just prop types, but I'm telling an interface, all the properties of the username interface are of username is a boolean, a string, age is a number, and this another special property I added just to demonstrate a boolean. And now if I see my code, I'm seeing React compiler to use this interface as my typing, and based on the types and the values, I'm displaying the value username. And if it's a premium user, then it's a premium user. If it's a regular user, then it's a regular user. Again, instead of just simply passing the properties, I'm defining the type of each of the properties. And now, if I this is how I use my component. And let's see if it's rendering now. Yeah, not yet. It should be rendering now. Once it renders, we'll see everything. But previously, remember, previous example, we saw a warning, but the number one was printed, and we were able to see the actual number that was there, even though we got a warning. But if I now try to change my username from John Doe to a number, let's see what happens. I get an immediate error in my compiler itself. My code will not run, and most likely you will get a warning. It's saying the number is not assigned to a type string. Let's see if this recompiles. Maybe white allows it to compile. The white allows it to compile, but that's okay. So now there is a direct indication inside my code base that I made a mistake, a red line directly, and beyond just typing, I can infer the right things directly from the inside of my code and able to sort of detect the error. The good part is with TypeScript, you could use types with anything. With prop types, the typing could be used with the properties of the component itself. But let's say if I had to define a new variable, um, let's say cost welcome message, I could say my welcome message will be of type string. This wouldn't have been possible uh, in the prop type. Here I'm defining the property on the prop type, and let's use this. So now I was able to define it with string and then able to display it. So um, TypeScript is really a huge project, and uh, it our learning resource doesn't cover too much in depth. But I'd suggest to practice TypeScript in your free time because it's something that is going to be used heavily, most likely wherever you work in your future jobs. So to knowing um, TypeScript is important, but it's not that difficult because uh, TypeScript is superset of JavaScript. So most of the things that you will see will resemble very, very quickly to JavaScript. I mean, you guys, if you have programmed in, let's say, Java or any other uh, uh, languages, you could always define a function, my fun, and you would uh, define its return type. So let's say my function returns a string. This is a very common pattern in other programming languages. But let's say if I'm returning a number, TypeScript helps you identify these errors as well. It's saying number is not designed to. So if I must pass something like a string, some string, the TypeScript helps you in so many places just beyond property, and it's definitely the most recommended way in the modern React programming and software development in general. You might do it with React. Angular is primarily entirely TypeScript. Their ecosystem is primarily on TypeScript. So and White is going, Vue.js is going there as well. So knowing TypeScript is a big deal. That leads to another important topic, and our textbook doesn't quite give you the example, but it's one thing to build an application like this, but you have to validate as well that my application is doing what it is intended to do. And to do that, we employ testing. And testing has three layers: unit testing, integration test, and end-to-end test. Unit testing is one piece that you as a developer will be doing and you must understand in detail. End-to-end testing, you may or may not be doing, and integration testings you may or may not be doing. There might be dedicated teams who would actually take the code from, who would look at the code which is actually running and then perform integration tests and end-to-end tests. Unit tests are most closest to actual software development, and due to that, one should understand unit tests deeply. For React applications, two things are very uh, famous, which allow combination of these two things allow us to perform unit testing, and those things are just is a testing test runner library, and React testing library allows us to write test cases for for our React component. So just its job is to ensure the assertions. What do we mean by assertion? Assertion means if I'm asserting that my function is supposed to return something else, then I'm validating that my function should return some string. If it's returning anything other than some string, then my test case should fail. So just allows us to do this kind of assertions. But setting up of unit test cases is not directly inbuilt in the White ecosystem. So I have provided, and I'll copy this, but this is inside the code base. Uh, to set up, we have to actually install additional packages in our development, then add a white configuration for testing. You guys don't need to remember this, uh, but just have a reference and you say you guys should be good. So don't need to worry about this. I will provide all of this. Then you must have additional test setup file. Looks something like this. It's importing the just DOM. What is a just DOM? Well, what we are seeing is a real DOM, document object model of a browser. When just runs this test cases, it needs the DOM, but it runs directly in the terminal, the test cases. So a virtual a DOM to run the code is what just import, and then we add another command in our package.json to actually run the tests quickly, just like npm run dev. We can do npm run test. So first, let me run a test, then we'll explain what that test does. Sorry, not def. We need to run npm run test. So I'm running a test case. Takes a bit of a time to run the test cases, so it's okay if you are hanged on the screen. But this is why the just the DOM is needed. Now I'm not doing anything with my browser, but I'm doing everything in the terminal. And then mind you, this can be run through the VS Code terminal. So it's okay if guys sort of use it from there. So now it ran all the tests. It took around 33 seconds, 34 seconds, and it ran the code in this user profile.test.tsx. So by default, the test runner will look for any files that have test in their name. So you should name your files using test or underscore test. There are a few conventions, but let's look at the code. So this is a different looking code than a component where I'm describing my test, where I'm saying my uh, user profile component renders user information. Then I'm creating the instance of user profile component, and I'm telling it the user profile has the username of John Doe, age 25, and premium user false. And now using just I am doing an assertion that an element with text of John Doe should be present in the document. An element with age 25 should be present in the document. And an element is user, regular user should be present in the document. So I am telling descriptively what my code should do. So this element should be present whenever I render my component. This element should be present. And based on the value of is premium user variable, either this should be present, it's a premium user, or regular user. If I go back to my code, I'm telling that it's not a premium user. So user is a regular user should be present. And when I save, the test runner runs the test and passes. This way, one can uh, establish that their code is running as intended. And let me show you how a test might fail. So we are saying that I want to test component when it's a premium user. So I wrote another test, and now we see a failure. What does the failure is saying? Unable to find element text is a regular user. So it's unable to find text is a it's a regular user. And that is what we had coded. If it's a premium user, we have to show user is a premium user. This by writing this test, we are validating the code that is written by us. This is for catching any bugs in the application quite early on. So let's modify our test to show that it's a premium user when we pass a premium user true. And now we see two tests pass. So in nutshell, unit testing tests the most basic code features and most minor code features, like even the a simple true or false value. Because based on true or false value, most minorest of the things, the rendered content could be very wildly different. So by doing unit tests, a developer is able to validate that they have done the right job. They have done what was expected of them when the code was supposed to be executed. So this is very brief of unit testing. Unit testing is a very big topic again, but I wanted you guys to have a practical reference uh, based on practical reference through the code. Now, the one level above of unit testing is test-driven development. Now, test-driven development is something that is a very big topic, not feasible to be demonstrated through code that easily. But test-driven development essentially means you write your test cases first and then make them fail. So let's take this out for now. And let's say uh, I write my code first and then uh, make my test cases pass. So I implement this kind of situation would have been given to you by your business analyst or your senior developer or your manager. So you're based on the requirement, first thing you do is write your test cases, then implement the code to pass those test cases. So maybe you initially you would have this much, and then you would remove that one and implement the right logic of considering the premium user. So you go from the red screen to all the test cases passing. Again, test-driven development is a really huge topic. So to do that, I had a for React only. I had a article written few months ago where you can actually play with this entire React application from scratch uh, to do the test-driven. How you can follow through this article? It gives you the enough detailed information, and at the end, it gives you another code to run as well, and it's able to help you understand more deeply what test-driven development is. I'll paste the link of the article here so you guys can learn more about test-driven development. Uh, so these are the topics that we have for this week. It's a very heavy topic. These are very heavy topics. Uh, so you can start.